The search for the missing Titanic submarine enters a critical phase as experts say oxygen on the craft could run out Thursday morning local time. Ukraine's allies have pledged billions of dollars in non-military aid during the first day of a recovery conference in London. Crowds gather in Paris in support of extremist activist group known as SLT, shut down by Emmanuel Macron's government over violent protests.
At least 31 people have been killed in an explosion at a restaurant in northwestern China, caused by a gas leak during a local holiday.
Search efforts have intensified for the missing submersible that lost contact with its mothership on Sunday in the North Atlantic. It was on a deep dive descending to the wreck of the Titanic. Experts say the breathable oxygen keeping the 5 people on board the Titan craft alive will probably run out Thursday morning local time.
We have to remain optimistic and hopeful when you're in a search and rescue case. So we're right in the middle of the search and rescue case. So I don't want to get into a discussion about when that would end with respect to this case.
An international fleet of surveillance vessels and aircraft is forging ahead with the ongoing search and rescue efforts. They have been spurred on by more reports of a regular banging sound in the deep ocean near the Titanic wreck. It could be emanating from the submersible. But each passing second makes it less likely that the passengers will be found alive. Ukraine's allies, one by one, have pledged several $billion in non-military aid during the first day of a 2-day recovery conference in London. Delegates from more than 60 countries are attending the event, which is both a fundraising forum and a message to Russia that Ukraine's Western supporters are in it for the long haul. But the figures being asked for are vast, as Ukraine's Prime Minister made clear.
Overall, at least $411 billion is needed for long-term reconstruction. Every day, Russia is inflicting new losses on Ukraine, and unfortunately, this figure will grow.
And Ukraine's Deputy Infrastructure Minister stressed that restoring the country's battered economy is necessary now.
The restoration isn't the consequences of the victory. It's just the part of the resistance. More, we are paying the salaries to our soldiers through the taxes. We're very grateful to our partners which providing us weapons, but the army, Ukrainian army is big now, demands money.
The EU's Commission President pledged one of the largest amounts of the day, €50 billion to help Ukraine rebuild.
It's our job and our duty to the Ukrainians who've paid the ultimate sacrifice, that we ensure that this reimagined future becomes reality, brick by brick.
The US has vowed to send an additional $1.3 billion to overhaul Ukraine's energy grid and modernize other critical infrastructure.
Recovery is about laying the foundation for Ukraine to thrive as a secure, independent country, fully integrated with Europe, connected to markets around the world.
And we call on others to follow suit.
The conference continues today, when private investment groups are expected to build on their contributions.
The EU has agreed to hit Russia with a new package of sanctions, the 11th time it's done so since Ukraine was invaded in February last year. The aim is to make it possible to punish third countries that have been helping Moscow evade them. The aim of many existing sanctions is to close loopholes so that goods vital to President Putin's war effort don't get through. The EU's top official, Ursula von der Leyen, tweeted that they'd deal a further blow to Putin's war machine. Previous sanctions have targeted banks, companies and financial markets, even parts of the sensitive energy sector. And more than 1,000 officials have had their assets frozen and been banned from entering the EU. But this is the first time that plans have been announced to target trade to Russia via other countries. Previous sanctions have been agreed on in just months, extremely quickly for the EU. But new measures are becoming increasingly hard to endorse as they inflict damage on the economic and political interests of some member states, as well as the Kremlin.
Protesters in several cities across France turned out to show their support on Wednesday for the climate activist group Soulèvement de la Terre, or Earth Uprisings in English. President Emmanuel Macron's government has shut it down, citing a risk to public safety.
Ce n'est pas la liberté d'expression ni la liberté de manifestation qui est en question. Ce n'est pas davantage des idées qui sont sanctionnées, c'est le recours répété à la violence contre des biens, contre des personnes, qui a été renouvelé à plusieurs occasions ces dernières semaines.
The group takes a radical form of climate action often aimed at big business interests, state projects and large-scale farming. Last March, a demonstration over a controversial irrigation project saw around 5,000 protesters battling with 3,000 police officers. 2 protesters were left in a coma afterwards, while around 30 officers were injured. The group gave a defiant response to the government's action.
On ne se laissera intimider ni par la dissolution administrative, ni par l'emploi de moyens de police antiterroriste à notre encontre.
The group has some high-profile supporters who don't necessarily back its methods, including prominent Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg.
A child has died in Slovenia as the country deals with its first heatwave of the summer. Police say the child was locked inside a car in a parking lot as temperatures topped 32 degrees Celsius. That number could rise to 34 degrees later this week. But some people are more in danger of soaring temperatures than others.
Ja, na urgenci najpogosteje zaradi vročine iščejo pomoč starejši ljudje. Ljudje s kroničnimi boleznimi, ki jemljejo številna zdravila, ki lahko zmanjšajo občutek toplote. Pa seveda delavci, ki delajo na vročini, nekateri športniki, ki tudi v ekstremni vročini potem izvajajo športne aktivnosti.
Hungary has issued a second-degree heat alert until midnight on Friday. In some places, temperatures could pass 37 degrees Celsius. But young children, the elderly, and people with cardiovascular diseases are particularly at risk. Experts are telling people to stay in cool places and drink plenty of water, especially between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. In central France, World Refugee Day was marked with an umbrella march in Lyon. The goal, to show solidarity and protection to asylum seekers, who often arrive in Europe alone.
Sans les associations, j'aurais eu beaucoup de mal, peut-être me refermer, pourquoi pas me suicider avec tout ce qu'il y a.
In Europe, the number of people in desperate situations seeking asylum has jumped to its highest rate since 2016.
On utilise le symbole du parapluie, qui est un symbole de protection très simple, un parapluie blanc, et pour passer le message qu'il faut continuer à accueillir les réfugiés. La France a accueilli à peu près autant de réfugiés en un an que la France accueille de demandeurs d'asile chaque année, à peu près 100 000. Donc il a fallu accueillir x2, j'allais dire.
Many who reach France are faced with daunting challenges, such as finding accommodation, and some are forced to turn to local volunteers for housing.
Ça fait 10 ans qu'on accueille des demandeurs d'asile parce qu'on était scandalisés par le fait que, bien qu'ayant une autorisation de séjour et tout, ils n'étaient pas logés, ils étaient à la rue.
Yakuba, who just obtained refugee status a few days ago, previously slept on the streets.
Quand je suis arrivé, c'était vraiment difficile. Je dormais à la pas Dieu. Je n'ai aucune personne, donc je suis accueilli par les familles.
Last year, France saw a 31% jump in the number of people applying for asylum for the first time.
At least 31 people have been killed in an explosion at a restaurant in the city of Yinchuan in northwestern China. It happened shortly before 9 p.m. local time, when the premises was packed with people celebrating the eve of a local holiday. 7 others were injured in the blast, which is thought to have been caused by a leak from a liquefied petroleum gas barbecue. The 3-day Dragon Boat Festival is celebrated in many places in China, with many dining out and socializing with friends.
For the first time, US regulators have approved the sale of chicken made from animal cells. 2 California companies are to offer lab-grown meat to the nation's restaurant tables and eventually supermarket shelves. Chicken grown from animal cells in a laboratory, not from slaughtered birds, can now be sold in the US on the food market. For supporters, the idea is to eliminate harm to animals and drastically reduce the environmental impact of raising them. The UK's biggest festival, Glastonbury, has officially begun in southwest England, with the daughter of its founder greeting festival goers at the gates. More than 200,000 people are expected to attend the music festival, a huge expansion from the very first Glastonbury in 1970. For many, camping, whatever the conditions, and it's often pouring with rain, is a rite of passage. This year's headliners include Guns N' Roses, Lewis Capaldi and Sir Elton John.
Pharrell Williams has bridged the gap between music and fashion in Paris. The famous singer, songwriter and producer made his debut on Tuesday night as creative director of Louis Vuitton's men's line. The fashion show took place at the iconic Pont Neuf, which was closed to the public and wrapped in a matte gold plaid canvas. Williams presented 50 outfits in which 2 types of prints, plaid and urban camouflage, predominated. More than 2,000 guests enjoyed the collection, which also included nods to hip-hop style. The 50-year-old writer of the worldwide hit Happy wants to show that he takes his new fashion job very seriously and has moved with his family to Paris to take on the role.